pretty good to bad to worse pretty quick. In marriage, in economics, in life in general. We need to be praying for the meltdown of the Seattle Seahawks. And pray that the Mariners don't blow it and they don't melt down this year. Come on, man. We got Ichiro in the Hall of Fame now. Goodness. The title of our message this morning is The Meltdown. You know, some of the most devastating things happen during meltdowns. Here are a few in recent history. On April 26, 1986, a power surge in Chernobyl's number 4 nuclear reactor triggered an explosion that instantly killed 38 people. In time, it was estimated that over 100,000 people were affected and killed. It caused over $70 billion in damages. This was the worst, disastrous nuclear meltdown in human history. On October 19th, 1987, a sudden, severe, unexpected economic disaster occurred. Share prices fell rapidly. Later, this became known as Black Monday. It was an economic meltdown. During the summer of 1931, in central and eastern China, tragedy struck as an abnormal amount of snow and ice melted in the mountains, came on down through the rivers and caused a continuous deluge. Add to that 9 cyclones, killed an estimated of 3 to 4 million people from drowning and starvation. The most tragic, natural, disastrous meltdown in the 20th century. Maybe some of you parents experienced a meltdown this last week with some of your kids. I've been there. Hopefully there haven't been any meltdowns in any of our marriages. Some of our new marriages. I could go through and talk for hours about the many spiritual meltdowns that have occurred in church history. Because the spiritual meltdowns are by far the most devastating meltdowns. They cause the most harm, and they come with eternal consequences. And so David writes in Psalm 119, verse 29, Lord, keep me from lying to myself. Be gracious to me and teach me your law. Because David knew that even in the height, when he was doing awesome, if he began to deceive and lie to himself, things could go bad very quickly. I want to talk this morning about spiritual meltdowns.
Yeah, bro.
And the example I'd like to start off with is in Philemon chapter 1.
Let's go.
Philemon was a book written by Paul to a guy named Philemon. And he wrote it around AD 60. And he says at the very end of his letter, in verse 23, Epaphras, my fellow prisoner in Christ, Jesus, sends you greetings. And so do Mark, Aristarchus, Demas, and Luke, my fellow workers. Now this is pretty awesome. Paul at this point has been on a few missionary journeys. He's traveled throughout Asia and now Europe. He's visited and planted and strengthened churches all over the world. And with him, he's gathered some of the most fiery, sold out, fully devoted, totally committed, fired up young Christians. And one of those guys, his name is Demas. He was called a fellow worker, a fellow servant. He was side by side with Paul. Wouldn't you like to see your name listed right next to Paul?
Yeah.
Paul, comma, Brian, comma, Josh, comma, Paulo, comma, Gilbert. I mean, that would just fire you on up. He was obviously doing pretty awesome spiritually. Well then, 2 years later, Paul writes a letter to the church in Colossae. And look over in Colossians chapter 4. In verse 14, he says, our dear friend, or maybe your version says, beloved friend, Luke, the doctor, and Demas send greetings. So now we see Demas' name again, but there is no special greeting. He went from this fellow worker, fellow servant, lists his name next to a comma and a whole bunch of awesome guys, to just another brother. It's almost as if Paul foresaw Demas' spiritual decline. And then, of course, that's confirmed because 5 years later after that, in AD 67, Paul writes his final letter to Timothy. Look over in 2 Timothy chapter 4. And he tells us something devastating. In 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 9, he says, "Do your best to come to me quickly, for Demas, because he loved the world, has deserted me and gone on to Thessalonica." You know what's kind of interesting about this is, why Thessalonica? Well, remember back in Acts chapter 17 when Paul had visited the Bereans and the Thessalonians? And when he went to Thessalonica, it was pretty awesome to be there with the disciples there. But then he went to Berea, and he was so inspired because they were eagerly examining the scriptures every day to see if what Paul said was true. But that wasn't said about those in Thessalonica, and I think it's no wonder that when Demas was doing bad spiritually, he escaped to Thessalonica. You know, he had forsaken Paul, and I believe the mission and his walk with God altogether. Why? Because the Bible says that because he loved the world. Now, there are a few Greek words for love in the Bible. One of them is agape. And agape love is a choice love. It's a love that you decide to give to somebody else. Jesus agapes you. Jesus gave up his life because he agapes you and me. Isn't that awesome? Well, Demas stopped giving that agape to Jesus, and he gave that agape to the world. In James chapter 4 and verse 4, it says, friendship with the world is hatred towards God. Friendship with the world. It's another Greek word, phileo, and it just means friendship. It's a lesser love. So if friendship with the world is hatred towards God, how much more so agape for the world? Demas had a spiritual meltdown. And so you have to ask, well, what happened? I mean, what happened? How in 7 years do you go from being Paul's fellow worker on the mission field to abandoning the mission and Jesus altogether? I like to think maybe he's walking along with Paul and he's inspired by his generosity and his powerful preaching. But after a while, Paul's generosity was tearing on his greedy heart. Or maybe Paul's meager income became exhausting and Demas was just tired of being broke. And so he began to love the world and gaining things in it. Maybe he was tired of all the travel, going from city to city to city to city. Maybe those long, hot days of preaching in the Middle East under the hot sun wore him out. He got tired of living this homeless lifestyle where he's preaching all day and then sleeping under the stars in the freezing cold Middle East at night. And then waking up early in the morning to Paul saying, all right, come on, we're going to the next town. We're going to the next city. And maybe after years of that, it wore him out. I mean, how long would you last with Paul? I mean, it'd be kind of fun, you know, a little summer internship with Paul. Travel around from city to city and experience what that might have been like. Demas lasted a few years. Amen. But after 7 years, he got worn out. He got burned out. He had a spiritual meltdown. Let's talk about another meltdown. Okay. Look over in Revelation chapter 3. In Revelation chapter 3 and verse 14, Jesus is giving a revelation to John. And so he writes these 7 letters to 7 churches in Asia. And in the final letter to the church in Laodicea, he writes, to the angel of the church in Laodicea, write, these are the words of the Amen. You know, God's got a lot of names in the Bible, about 250 of them. And this is the only time where God is called the Amen. The so be it. So let it be written. So let it be done. This is the final letter. The faithful and true witness, the ruler of God's creation. I know your deeds, that you're neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. You say, I'm rich, I've acquired wealth, I don't need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. You know, the city of Laodicea was known to be wealthy. It was, out of these 7 cities, it was the furthest east. And if anyone was to do trade in Asia, they would have to travel through Laodicea, and so it became this trading point, and they would acquire all of this wealth and all of this money. Now, in that area, earthquakes are very common. And in AD 60, it's recorded that an earthquake hit Laodicea so hard, it destroyed everything. It was so bad that the emperor of Rome stepped in and said, hey, the Roman Empire, the government, we want to give you money to help you rebuild your city in Laodicea. And the city was so rich that they said, no, keep your money. We don't need it. We'll rebuild it ourselves. Wow. This was amazing and impressive to all of the surrounding cities, and this incident is what made the city of Laodicea famous. People were like, whoa, they're self-sufficient. They can take care of themselves. They don't need tax breaks. People aren't begging on the streets. It's a very wealthy place. You know, the truth is, guys, every city has its own DNA. Yeah. Every place has its own DNA, and with that DNA comes a sinful nature. Yeah. And so you can experience that even in the Northwest. You go from Seattle down to Portland or out to Coeur d'Alene, Spokane, Tacoma, maybe even up to Vancouver, BC. Everywhere you go, it kind of has a little bit of a different feel. It looks similar. It's beautiful, blue skies. You know, there's a lot of things to do, but the city itself and the people struggle with kind of their own independent sorts of things. Yeah. And so the struggle in the city of Laodicea was to be self-sufficient. Now, why is that wrong? Because it led them to an intense pride. Politics, economics, demographics, geography, history, these are the things that create the DNA of a certain place. And I think as Christians, we need to be aware of this. We need to be able to look around the city that we're living and know what are the main struggles here. Jesus quotes them saying, I'm rich, I've acquired great wealth, I don't need a thing. Their self-sufficiency produced inside of them a self-righteousness. They were deceived, they were lying to themselves, they got comfortable in their Christianity, they thought they were stable, and they were not. And slowly but surely, the church in Laodicea had a meltdown. You know, Jesus said they were actually wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. We would never want that to be said about us. You see, the danger with lukewarmness is that you typically don't realize it until someone says something. You don't realize it until you get compared to somebody else. See, a lot of us went down to the GLC fired up. We thought we were doing awesome. And then you see this fired up brother and that fired up brother and this fired up church. And you start to go, whoa, maybe I'm not as spiritual as I thought I was. Maybe I've got a ways to go in my walk with God. The truth is, there's no sin in being wealthy. There's no sin in being talented. But are you using what God's given you to glorify God? You guys with me here? There's a great opportunity on our campuses for the students to shine brightly and glorify God with their talents and with their intellect and their good grades. There's a great opportunity in the professional world for you to shine bright and be different than your coworkers. You know, when you live with non-Christians, you have an opportunity to live different and to be that one roommate that really sticks out. And so we've got to know the sinful nature of our city, so that Jesus never turns to us and has to be the one to say to us, you are wretched. Because the truth is, we're all wretched. Paul said in Romans chapter 7, verse 24, he goes, what a wretched man I am. I don't think this was something he was proud to say. He was just stating a fact. He goes, what a wretched man I am. You've got to humble yourself and say, man, what a wretched man I am. Or you're going to be humbled by Jesus telling you, you're a wretched man. You know, we don't want the sin of our city to creep into our lives. You know, I think one of the greatest things you can do to enhance your walk with God is go on a mission team. And just a few weeks ago, we had the opportunity of sending our sister Alondra off to Louisville, Kentucky. And I was really following her travel. I was very interested to see how this transition happened. And I was so pleased when I saw that she landed. And within one day, within 24 hours, she was on campus sharing her faith. And in less than half a day on campus, she shared her faith and set up 3 new Bible studies with 3 different new non-Christian friends. I mean, it's amazing what happens when you just change up your scenery a little bit. I was really inspired. I called up Marvell. I said, Marvell, I've got an idea. Okay, what's the idea? I said, bro, let's switch some things up in the campus ministry. He said, okay, where are you going with this? I said, school doesn't start at UW till the end of September. So what are we going to do with all of our fire and zeal now? I've got an idea. Let's go to the campuses that open early, like Seattle University, Seattle Pacific University. Let's do 1-week campaigns with all of our new interns and staff on each of those campuses. Let's start new Bible talks so that by the time school starts at UW, our fire hasn't gone out at all. In fact, it's been fanned into an even greater flame, and when we hit the campus, it's even more awesome. He goes, you know, let me think about that. Let me think about that. He gets back to me. He says, you know what? This is an answered prayer. I was just praying, God, what can we do with all of our zeal right now? This is perfect. Let me put together a campaign. In less than one day, he put together an entire campaign for Seattle University and Seattle Pacific University. And so, Lord willing, in less than 2 weeks, we're going to start 2 new campus ministries at Seattle University and Seattle Pacific University. Sometimes the Holy Spirit is trying to lead you and guide you to try new things. Do not resist the Holy Spirit. You know, this past week, Courtney and I had the opportunity to go down to Oregon and celebrate our 10-year wedding anniversary. And no, it wasn't our anniversary, but we thank you for those who sent flowers and gifts and money, and congratulations. You're a few months late. You know, one of the things about being in the ministry is you don't always get to celebrate things on time. So we did have a quick little 24-hour celebration back in March, but we had postponed our anniversary trip to August. And so we went down to Oregon, and it was awesome. We're down there and, you know, went on some hikes and some walks along the beach and, you know, did the whole married thing, you know, holding hands and looking at the blue skies and talking about sweet nothings. And by Tuesday, we were like, this is great and all, but, like, let's do something. Like, you know, like, can we go somewhere? Can we do something? And I ran into an Ace Hardware to get a couple things so I could actually start my fire. I forgot all my camp supplies. And we were going camping. And I'm in there, and I'm on my way out, and I thought, you know, let me just ask this guy, do you know any fishermen with a boat that maybe would be interested in taking us out fishing? And he goes, I don't, but maybe ask that guy. So I'm like, all right. So I go to this guy. I say, hey, do you know anybody that would be interested in taking us out on their boat? He goes, I don't, but why don't you go to this tackle and bait shop, you know, place 3 miles down the road? I said, all right. So we drive over there. Say, hey, do you know anybody that has a boat that would like to take us out fishing? She goes, I can look into it. Let me get back to you. I'm like, I'm not going to wait for you. So I just Google it, you know, and I call a guy, but he's down in Coos Bay. We were in Winchester Bay. And I get a hold of this guy. I say, hey, do you have a guy with a boat that could take us out fishing? He goes, I don't, but where are you? I said, I'm in Winchester Bay. I've got a friend in Winchester Bay. Let me give you his number. Here's his number. So I call that guy. Hey, I'm in Winchester Bay. Do you know anybody that's interested in fishing? He said, I don't, but let me give you the number of this guy, Rally. I said, thanks, John. Hang up with John. Get on the phone with Rally. Hey, Rally, we're in town. We've just got a couple days left of our trip. Is there anybody that could take us out? He says, you know what? I've got 2 spots open on my boat tomorrow morning. But you've got to be here at 6 a.m. I said, no problem. We'll be there at 6 a.m. So we go back. We get to bed early. We're up at 5. We're, getting our campsite packed up because we got to leave that afternoon. And we make our way over to the marina. We find this guy, Rally. We get on the boat, and we're headed out to sea, 10 miles from shore. I said, where are we going? He said, there's a spot. I said, there's a spot? He said, it's a good spot. Trust me. It's 350 feet deep. That's where all the rockfish are. I said, all right, let's do it. By the way, what's a rockfish? He goes, well, they're between 3 and 7 pounds. They're really good eating. I said, let's do it. Now, because there were 5 people on the boat and only 4 people had licenses because Courtney didn't want to go fishing, she just wanted a boat ride. We were able to keep 10 rockfish per person for a total of 40. So we're out there, and within an hour and a half, we've caught 36 rockfish. Everyone, there's 4 poles. They're all in the water, and we've got 36 rockfish. We can only catch 4 more. So I'm looking around, and I got a little competitive spirit in me. And I go, Lord, I want to catch number 37. Oh, reel it on up. I got number 37. Yeah, this cranking rockfish, 6 or 7 pounds. I was fired up. Well, the other 3 people still have their lines in the water. So as I'm letting my line down, we're using what's called a long leader. So it's got multiple hooks on it. I'm lowering it down. I said, Lord, I know we're in the hot spot. I know these other 3 people, they're probably going to catch a fish. We can only catch 3 more, but can I just be one of those? I just want to catch 1 more. The leader the weight is a 2-pound weight, and it's sinking, and I'm watching how far down it's going. We got to get to 350 feet. I hit like 315 feet. I'm not even on the bottom yet, and whoop, my pole starts shaking. I say, oh, I got another one fired up. Reel this thing on up. I pull it out of the water. I've got a triple. I got 3 rockfish at the same time. You know what's better than 1 rockfish? 2 rockfish. You know what's better than 2 rockfish? 3. I got 3 rockfish. The captain was amazed. Oh, whoa, you got a triple. All right, everybody, reel your lines on up. The Lord gave me the last 4 rockfish. I was fired up. But that's the kind of faith that we need in the church. You pray for 1, God gives you 3. Lord, just give me this 1 little blessing. And he's like, I got 3 blessings waiting for you. That's the kind of faith that we need. And that's the kind of faith that Laodicea did not have. They were like, oh, no, we're content. We're good. We don't need any fish. We're totally content. We're satisfied. I hope we never get there in our relationship with God. Lord, I'm good. I'm content. I'm satisfied. I'm not leading a Bible talk yet, but that's cool. Maybe in 5 years, 10 years, maybe you'll open a door. Never get satisfied in your relationship with God. We need to work hard to walk closely with God, to be used by God in a great way. Jesus is saying something here. He's saying there's hot and there's cold, and then there's somewhere in the middle, there's lukewarmness. And the question isn't, are you hot? Are you cold? It's where are you? If someone was not going to give you the answer, where are you? Because if you're cold, you know it. Many of us went to Chicago back in January for the NAMC. You felt cold, real cold. You knew when you were cold. You know when you're cold spiritually. I'm a mess. I need Jesus. Please help me on out. You know it. And you know when you're hot. You know when that heat wave came a few weeks ago, you knew it. You're like, whoa, this is hot. This is uncomfortable. I am on fire right now. The same thing happens spiritually. But if you're questioning, well, I'm not cold and I'm not hot, then where are you? You're lukewarm. That's the danger with lukewarmness. You're not hot, but you're not cold. You're somewhere in the middle. And then the question is, how did you get there? I remember back in college, between my freshman and sophomore year of college, I had grown incredibly lukewarm spiritually. I knew I wasn't cold, but I knew I wasn't hot. So I knew I was somewhere in the middle. And we were at this devotional, And the preacher got up and preached, but I was doing so bad spiritually. I didn't have my Bible out. I wasn't taking notes. I was just kind of sitting there going through the devotional. And by the end of it, everyone's fired up. They prayed, they clapped, they stood up, they start fellowshipping, and I just sit there. You ever been there? Just kind of, I don't really know what to do right now. I don't feel like fellowshipping. I don't like people. Just going to kind of stay to myself. I knew I wasn't doing well. So I grabbed my Bible. I'm sitting there, and I pull one of these. We call it the holy flip. And I prayed, God, just give me what I need. I don't know what I need. I don't know what my problem is. Just help me on out. And I point to 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 8. And God says, now I charge you in the sight of all Israel and of the assembly of the Lord, and in the hearing of our God, be careful to follow all the commands of the Lord your God. Probably just a coincidence. All right, Lord, do it again. Verse 10. Consider now, for the Lord has chosen you to build a house as a sanctuary. Be strong and do the work. All right, if it happens 3 times in a row, it's definitely from God. Verse 20. David also said to Solomon his son, be strong and courageous and do the work. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord God, my God, is with you. I got up, grabbed the campus minister. I said, I need to talk to you. Went in the other room, and I said, let me just confess. And I started getting open about everything. I mean, here's everything going on in my life. I know I'm not doing good spiritually. You got to help me. And I'll never forget what he did. He looks across the table, a little confused, a little surprised, baffled, didn't really know what to say. He goes, well, do you want to repent? I said, I mean, yeah. He said, all right. Then just repent. I said, okay. And I'm telling you, in that moment, this weight was lifted off my shoulders. Because now I'm walking in the light. All my sin is on the there's nothing hidden anymore. It's right there. And God brought me to a decision. You can either repent or not. And I repented very quickly. You know, when you're lukewarm, you typically need somebody to speak up, to help you out. The GLC was amazing. And we had 68 disciples go down to the GLC. For those of you who don't know, the GLC stands for Global Leadership Conference. It's something we do in our family of churches every few years. So we went down to LA, 68 of us. We came back. We were fired up. We still are fired up. When I look at the Seattle church, I go, we are generally fired up. This church is doing awesome right now. The challenge is not, are you fired up? It's, will you stay fired up? Will you stay hot spiritually? In a month, in 3 months, in 6 months. The next GLC is until 2024. Are you going to wait until 2024 to get fired up again? God deserves our best. We need to melt the Seattle freeze in our hearts and have a surge in the fall. Jesus gives a solution in Revelation chapter 3 and verse 18. He says, I counsel you, I disciple you. Buy from me gold refined in the fire so that you can become rich. What is he really saying here? You need faith. The Bible talks about faith being like that of gold, refined in the fire. In other words, Jesus says, you're fired up now, but you got to go through something. You've got to be not just faithful, but your faith has to be proven faithful. You've got to allow this struggle right now, Church of Laodicea. I'm calling you out. You're lukewarm. You got to allow this struggle now to refine your faith so you can grow stronger through it. He says, sell what you got. Buy this gold that's refined in the fire. Take my discipling. That's what he's saying. Then he says this, and white clothes to wear so you can cover your shameful nakedness. One of the things that made the city of Laodicea rich is they had this special wool that they could make in that particular area. This wool was dark in color and shiny, so it made them a whole lot of money. Jesus says, stop wearing these dark colored clothes spiritually, get rid of it and put on this white robe. Now, robe symbolizes royalty. The white symbolizes purity, spirituality. So he's saying, get rid of the darkness, the selfish ambition, that ego, your pride, these impurities, and put on this white royal robe. Because in the kingdom of God, that is who you are. Then he says this, and salve to put on your eyes so you can see. Remember that time where the blind guy came to Jesus and Jesus spit in the dirt, mixed it around, took that mud and put it on the man's eyes, and instantly he could see? The miracle occurred. Remember that? Yeah. He's saying, take this salve, put it on your eyes. Get me back in your life. Yeah. You need to see spiritually. Change this materialism to a spirituality so we can be together again. Wow. He rebukes them in verse 19. He says, those whom I love, I rebuke and discipline, so be earnest and repent. Here I am, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with him and he with me. Jesus says, I'm not even in your church anymore. The Spirit isn't even there anymore. You've got to welcome me back into the church. You know what's awesome though? He gives them some hope in verse 21. To him who overcomes, I will give the right to sit with me on my throne, just as I overcame and sat down with my Father on his throne. The book of Revelation was written by the Apostle John. And I imagine that John has been writing all the letters out to the different churches, and he gets to the very end of the letter to the church in Laodicea. And I imagine that when Jesus said these words, John's eyes lit up. Why? Well, John had a brother, James. James had been martyred long before this day. But he also had a mother who was a disciple of Jesus. And there's this one particular passage in Mark chapter 10 where James and John, their mother comes to Jesus and says, Jesus, I've got a little request. Can my boys sit at your right and left? It was the highest place of honor she could fathom. And Jesus, of course, says what? No. I don't know if they really want that spot. Why? He answers it right here. John finally got the answer to that question 70 years prior. Because Jesus says, you've got to overcome to have a seat in my throne. So Jesus says, the throne can be yours. You can have this spot, but you need to overcome. You need to go through something. You've got to wait. You've got to go through some hard times. And this really is the test of life. Are you going to be an overcomer? Are you going to persevere when things get tough? This is the test that many of us have been faced with and are being faced with and will face. The test to overcome lukewarmness. You know, when you look around and you're tempted with lukewarmness, you're tempted to be self-sufficient, you're tempted to lower your commitment to God, you're tempted to take advantage of God and the life that he's blessed you with so many abundant blessings, that is the ultimate test. Our walks with God need to be inspired, but also inspiring. And when you do that, that's how you avoid a spiritual meltdown. And to God be all the glory. Amen?